On October 15th, 2018, Angie Romero was fighting with her boyfriend. This was not new, as they'd had their problems. The last time her family spoke with her was on October 14th, 2018. And even though they've tried multiple attempts to call and text Angie, they never received a response. She walked away from the fight and left her boyfriend's house on foot. This was the last time that Angie Romero was ever seen again. Today, I'm asking, where is Angie Romero? I am Eric Carter-Landin, and this is True Consequences. Before we get too far into this, I want you to hear from Angie's best friend, Vanessa, and cousin Selina about who Angie is.
Angie Romero, she was my very good friend. She lived with me. We did a lot of things together. She was my best friend. Angie, she was a mother. She had kids that cared about her a lot, that needed her. She was a daughter. She was a good person all the way around. She was there for everybody. She was always there for me. She'd do anything for anybody.
And what do you miss most about Angie?
Her presence, her laugh. Like, she could make anybody laugh. She
had a good sense of humor.
Yeah, she loved people. She was there for everybody.
I hadn't seen Angie since we were, little kids, but during my investigation over the last 4 years, every single person that I've met said that she was there a lot for the homeless community and for women, and that she was very missed because she was a safe person for a lot of people.
She was ride or die. She was there for everybody, no matter what.
And her kids, she has a 30-year-old daughter and a 20-something-year-old son, and they are devastated, and her mom is broken, and she has aunts, uncles, cousins.
It's taken a toll on everybody. She meant a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah.
To a lot of people.
And just to up and disappear. Like one day, her mom had texted with her constantly, and then you can see in the texts where she stops disappearing, and her mom keeps texting, "Where are you?" And it's just, there's never a reply.
There's a huge gap in the lives of her family and friends. Just like every other case that I cover, Angie had a past. She had some struggles. Angie's friend Vanessa told me all about them.
She was a prior sex worker. She took care of herself how she knew she could, no matter what. And people looked down on her for that. And she didn't want to do it. She wasn't continuing to do it. She was actually, at the time of her disappearance, she was no longer working. She wanted more. Yeah. She wanted better. And she thought this person wanted it with her.
So she meets a guy.
Yeah.
She sees some hope, maybe.
She loved him. She did. She just loved him. She wanted him to love her.
And, he owned a house. Mm-hmm. He had a job. He came from a good family. She might have believed that this was her way out.
What were her hopes and dreams?
She wanted to be a wife. She wanted to be a wife. She wanted a home. She wanted to help people to do better. Yeah. She didn't want where she was. She knew her mistakes.
Yeah. Everybody has their struggles.
Everybody has mistakes.
Yeah. But she sounds like she was trying to better herself and try to get her life in a place where she felt good about it and happy about it. And
she put her hopes in the wrong hands. She thought he loved her. She wanted him to love her. I don't know why she wanted him to love her so bad.
Angie was done with sex work. She was trying to make a life for herself with her boyfriend. She wanted to be a housewife. She wanted a happy life. She thought that she found that with her boyfriend Daniel. According to Vanessa and Selina, reality was far from that dream and was likely closer to a nightmare. Were you aware of any physical violence that Angie endured at his hands?
Yeah, lots of them. There's records.
Yeah.
There was lots of them. She called me several times. She's showed up at my house bleeding. You know, he attacked her in the shower with a knife. He shot the shotgun in the house with her there. Like, there's several. The cops have brought her home. She lived with me, but she would stay with him. The cops have brought her to my house after incidents because she needed to leave there.
Did you talk to her about leaving?
I did. Your heart wants what your heart wants. Yeah. When you love somebody, I understand. I do.
So you're having these conversations with her. She's telling you, and you're seeing physically the toll that it's taking on her body to endure this abuse. You are talking to her about potentially leaving. We know that it's not as easy as it sounds. We know that statistically, women have a 75% higher chance of being murdered when they try to leave a domestic violence situation. Those are the facts. So as soon as somebody tries to leave, their chance of dying goes up. It's an extremely dangerous situation. The reason I talk about this is because I want people to understand that this isn't just as simple as she should just leave.
And by the time you're able to leave, because they break you down. And
take your money.
You're literally, you have nothing, and they make you feel like you cannot do anything without them.
Yeah, you're fully dependent.
And your family,
think you need them.
Mm-hmm.
And your family at this point has given up because you've tried to leave 6, 7, 8, 9 times before. But what families don't understand is that I think the statistics are it takes 8 times before you leave. Mm-hmm. And by that time, your family doesn't believe you anymore.
Right.
Not just your family, your friends, your chosen family, the people.
Cops.
The cops.
Yeah.
The cops. I've been here before. We've done this before. Why are you still here?
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you, the cops took her to my house more than once. They knew, they just didn't care anymore, I guess.
Yeah, it's easy to get desensitized, I think, when you're dealing with that week after week, month after month, all across the city.
And he was playing a good part because she was sick right before this, and she was admitted to the hospital. And while she was admitted to the hospital, he was there bringing flowers, telling the nurses, just being if you ask the nurses and our family members that were there, they can tell you that he was the doting boyfriend.
Yeah.
And when I met with his mom, she told me that the flowers that he took to her hospital were from his mom's garden.
Domestic abusers, intimate partner abusers are consistently known for being manipulative and for being one person in public and another person in private. It's something that I've experienced in my own life with my mom and some partners of hers in the past. So I don't want to blame Angie for anything that has happened to her, because when you're in that space, people think that when you're in that situation that it's always awful, and it's not. It's awful sometimes. It's awful sometimes. And when it's good, it's really, really, really good.
Really good.
And they're sorry.
It's
and
really
they'll tell you everything you want to hear.
And those times, they could be far in between, but
that's the hope you hang on to.
And you want it so bad.
Or the bad parts could even be far and in between, but when they're drastic. Mm-hmm. However, everything else could be amazing.
Yep.
Everything.
Vanessa described what happened to Angie before she went missing.
I had needed to do laundry, so I went to her boyfriend's house. I was there with her. I washed my clothes, and she was not feeling well. The week prior, she had an incident, and so she had recently come out of the hospital, which involved him as well. However, she wasn't feeling well. But I washed my clothes there. Everything was okay. I even spoke with him. You know, I left on a good point. I didn't like him very much. However, I told him to take care of her. She's all I care about. If you take care of her, we're good. And I left. That was the last day I saw her. And the next day, I tried to call her in the morning. I talked to her every day. She didn't respond. I tried again and again. She didn't respond. So I went over there. Nobody answered the door. However, I noticed the vehicle was, he had the car. He had a car the night before. That day, he had a truck. He wasn't at work. He didn't answer the door for a while. I noticed there was a truck there. I noticed he was there, but he wouldn't answer the door. So I kept knocking. I knocked on the windows. I went around to the side of the house. I knocked on the bedroom window and proceeded to say, Angie, I'm not leaving until you answer the door. And finally, he came out. And he said she wasn't there. And I was like, what do you mean she's not here? Where'd she go? He told me she left at 4 a.m, walking to meet a date. However, she was not working. She wasn't feeling good.
When you say she wasn't feeling good, can you talk a little bit more about what that looked like?
When I was at her house doing laundry, she was very weak. She was getting dizzy spells. She would go from the kitchen table to go get a glass of water and have to hold on to the counter. She was not feeling well. She was real weak. She didn't have much energy at all.
So it wouldn't make sense for her to go. First of all, she hadn't been working. You had said that already.
Yeah.
But wouldn't make sense for her to go and try to work when she can barely even go get a glass of water.
Yeah. Yeah. She was not feeling well.
So what did you think when he said that to you?
You're full of shit. There's no way. She would have called me. Her phone line was on my plan. Why didn't she call me? It was cold. It was cold that night. She wouldn't go walking. She couldn't. There's no possible way.
So what happened after that?
I called around to make sure, anybody else that knew her that we spoke with on a regular heard anything. If we talked to Angie, I called her mom. Her mom talked to her every day. She had gotten a text from her the night before. As usual, I'm okay, Mom. Talk to you tomorrow. When I didn't hear from her that morning, I knew it. I knew something. I had the worst feeling.
Was it out of character for her not to respond to you right away?
Yes. We spoke the night before. My boyfriend at the time was in Phoenix, and he was supposed to be coming to town, but I wasn't sure if he was coming or not. So call me in the morning and let me know if he's coming or not. So I was calling her in the morning and letting her know, and she would have answered. She always answered.
Why wasn't he at work? And his parents told me that it was, this might be in the police report too. His parents told me that it was very unusual for him to come and trade vehicles, that he had never done that before. Exactly.
He had the car that night. The day I went looking for her, he had the truck. He worked. He went to work at 6 a.m. He's an electrician. He went to work at 6 every morning. He wasn't at work. This was noon. I hadn't heard from her. And he's not answering the door for 30 minutes. Wouldn't let me use the bathroom. And why didn't you go to work?
It wasn't like Sunday.
Yes. No. Okay. He should have been at work.
Okay.
He should have been at work.
You talked to her mom.
Her mom hadn't heard from her that day. At the time when we did alert the police, another friend of ours, Rachel, had called and reported her missing. Okay. And we told her last place she was located, last place we spoke to her, all the information needed. They assigned it to a new detective
in the missing
persons who kind of let everything go.
And by the time it got to the homicide detective, she didn't really have a lot to work with. But I will tell you that the crime scene unit was at his house for 8 hours, and they did take a lot of evidence from his house.
From what I know, they did find blood. However, she lived there per se, between there and my house. So She would have been.
Her DNA would have been there.
Yes. Her phone, like, that's my number now. It was under my line. I got her the phone. Okay. There was a voicemail on there from him, from Daniel. Yes. That said, I'm going to kill you, you fucking bitch.
And
it was from him. And we told the detectives, and they, the missing persons detective, he blew it off. He didn't get it.
Her uncle Ron, Angie's uncle, heard the message, as well as her mom, Karen. The last thing the detective told me was that they were going to put it on their YouTube channel, and they were going to run her case on there, and the detective got promoted, and she's no longer a homicide detective.
What happened to the car? Did they find it?
Yes. Okay. He would trade the car and the truck from his parents' house, wherever his parents' house are. I think they're from Carnuel. So that's another thing. He knows the mountains like the back of his damn hands.
And he told her that he could kill her and no one would ever find your body.
It's clear that there were some domestic violence issues between Angie and Daniel. When asked about Angie's whereabouts, Daniel claimed that she left to go on a date. But her friend says Angie was so ill that she would not have done that. She barely had the strength to walk. In fact, she had recently been admitted to the hospital. She also had decided to stop doing sex work, so this version of what happened does not make sense. Now I'm going to read a little bit from the police reports and supplements that were filed when Angie went missing. I will be reading these verbatim. On October 18th of 2018, Officer Kevin Beam was dispatched in reference to a missing person situation. Miss Rachel Fowler reported that her roommate, Miss Angie Romero, was missing. Miss Fowler stated that Miss Romero was picked up by her boyfriend, Mr. Daniel Salazar Sonnenberg, from a friend's residence on October 13th, 2018. Miss Romero's friend is Miss Vanessa Gutierrez. Miss Fowler stated that Miss Romero's mother, Miss Karen Buckholtz, last spoke to Miss Romero on October 14th of 2018. I spoke with Miss Fowler, who verified what she told Officer Beam. I spoke with Miss Buckholtz, Angie Romero's mother, who told me that she last spoke with her daughter on October 14th of 2018. Miss Buckholtz went on to tell me that she is aware that Miss Romero abused illegal narcotics and has prostituted, but despite all that, she has always kept in contact with her or her children. Miss Buckholtz said that this is the longest she had gone without hearing from Miss Romero. I talked to Angie Romero's boyfriend, Mr. Daniel Salazar Sonnenberg, by telephone on October 22nd and October 26th. Miss Romero and Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg have had a violent relationship. Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg told me that he and Miss Romero had been up all night from October 14th to the early morning of October 15th, when she left at approximately 4 or 4:30 a.m. from his residence on Prospect Avenue. Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg said that they were up late talking and arguing about Miss Romero's abusing narcotics and prostituting herself. Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg said that Miss Romero had to, quote, do a date, indicating that she was going to prostitute herself. Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg said that he did not know where Miss Romero was going, who she was meeting with, or how she was getting there. Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg said Miss Romero walked westbound on Prospect Avenue when she left. Miss Romero did not have a vehicle that she was using at the time. Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg said that Miss Romero was on her phone throughout Sunday, October 14th of 2018, but did not know who she was communicating with. It is believed that Miss Romero took her cellular phone with her when she left Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg's residence. Mr. Sonnenberg said that he does not know where Miss Romero currently is. I spoke with Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg again, at which time he again told me the same story, only this time he stated that he and Angie went to a nearby 7-Eleven convenience store on Manal Boulevard for sodas. The nearest 7-Eleven to Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg's residence is located at 10324 Manal Boulevard. Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg did tell me that Miss Romero had some of her property at his residence. Unknown what personal property of Miss Romero's was left there. Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg said that detectives were welcome to pick up the items from his residence on October 29th after 5 p.m. when he returned from work. I talked to one of Miss Romero's friends during my investigation, Miss Gutierrez. She said that Daniel has a dungeon in a back room that he has locked up Miss Romero in before and has even choked her while in it. Miss Gutierrez said that the dungeon was located in the back living room area in a walk-in closet, according to what Miss Romero told her. During my investigation, I talked with Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg's neighbor, who has security cameras on their residence. He provided security video for the day and times that Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg stated that Miss Romero left. His residence is directly west of Mr. Sonnenberg's. Mr. Sonnenberg stated that Miss Romero walked westbound on Prospect and would have been observed by the security cameras. Ms. Romero was not observed in the video footage for the times that Mr. Sonnenberg stated. I talked with another of Mr. Sonnenberg's neighbors. This neighbor also reviewed his security video and told me that he did not see Angie. The only person he saw was an unknown woman walking her dog at approximately 0500 hours, which is after the time frame Mr. Sonnenberg gave. I have called Ms. Romero's phone, which goes directly to voicemail, and left a message to call me back. Ms. Romero has not called me back. A missing persons flyer for law enforcement was created and sent statewide. Ms. Buchholz created a Facebook missing person flyer and shared it with multiple people on social media in hopes that someone will be able to help in locating Ms. Romero. The media has also been contacted by the APD Public Information Officer and advised of the situation. All local hospitals and the Office of the Medical Investigators have been contacted with no success. Angie's mother, Ms. Karen Buchholz, contacted me and told me that she accessed Angie's phone messages with the help and permission of Ms. Gutierrez. Ms. Gutierrez has Angie on her cellular phone plan. Ms. Buchholz said that there was a message from Mr. Sonnenberg from earlier in the month of October 2018. Ms. Buchholz stated that the message said, quote, "I'll fucking kill you." Ms. Buchholz was advised to save the message until detectives can listen to it and record it. On October 26th of 2018, I requested Bernalillo County Sheriff deputies go to and make contact with Daniel Salazar Sonnenberg's parents, Mrs. Virginia Salazar and Mr. Dale Sonnenberg, and ask whether they have seen Miss Romero recently. Miss Romero's mother informed me that she has gone to the residence before. I later learned that they had not seen nor heard from Miss Romero for a long time. On October 27th of 2018, I was contacted by Bernalillo County Sheriff Sergeant Sabah. Sergeant Sabah stated that she was at in reference to a domestic dispute between Daniel Salazar Sonnenberg and his mother and father. Mr. Salazar told deputies that Daniel said that Angie was dead and that it was his fault. Detective Lukanoff, Detective Neal, Detective Inyart, Sergeant Tafoya, and I proceeded to 26 Monticello Drive. Mr. Daniel Salazar Sonnenberg was being detained by BCSO deputies. Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg was highly intoxicated, according to the deputies. Ms. Salazar said that sometime during the evening, Daniel and his sons went to a fire pit that is on her property close to the house. His son later returned alone while Daniel remained out at the fire pit. Daniel returned to the residence and was acting weird, according to his mother. Ms. Salazar said that Daniel started to act belligerent and appeared to be intoxicated. Ms. Salazar said that an empty bottle of vodka was located at the fire pit. Ms. Salazar said that Daniel made the statement that Angie was dead and that it was his fault. Fearing that physical violence might occur between Daniel and his father, Dale Sonnenberg, Ms. Salazar called police. BCSO deputies arrived on scene and learned about the statement and contacted police. Detectives were going to interview Mr. Daniel Salazar Sonnenberg, but determined that it was not feasible to interview him at the time due to his high level of intoxication. Mr. Sonnenberg was transported to UNM Hospital by BCSO deputies at his request due to his high levels of intoxication. It was decided to get a search warrant for Mr. Sonnenberg's residence. Sergeant Tafoya and two field officers conducted a safety sweep of the residence. Officers discovered a red blood-like substance on the carpet of two of the residence's bedrooms. Once the safety sweep was conducted, officers withdrew from the residence and remained on guard of the residence outside. A search warrant for the residence was executed on October 28, 2018. Evidence was collected that led detectives to seal and tow Mr. Sonnenberg's two primary vehicles, a 2009 Ford truck, gray, and a silver 2011 four-door Nissan. The Nissan is Mr. Sonnenberg's registered vehicle that he mainly uses. The vehicles were at Mr. Sonnenberg's parents' residence of 26 Monticello Drive Northeast. Detectives spoke with Daniel Sonnenberg's mother, Miss Virginia Salazar, on October 28th. Ms. Salazar stated that Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg arrived in the early morning of October 18th to return the 2009 gray Ford truck. This was approximately 3 days after Angie Romero was last seen by Mr. Sonnenberg. Ms. Salazar stated that it was unusual for Daniel to arrive at her residence that early in the morning to switch vehicles. The vehicles were sealed by a field investigator and towed to the APD crime lab. On October 29th, I wrote 2 search warrants, one for each of the vehicles that were sealed and towed. The search warrants were delivered to the APD crime lab so that the vehicles could be processed. On October 30th, I wrote a search warrant for Mr. Sonnenberg's cellular phone information. Once approved, the warrant was faxed to AT&T Mobility. On October 31st, Detective Inyar and I went to the 7-Eleven convenience store located at 10324 Manal Boulevard and reviewed store security footage from October 14th of 2018 from 2200 to 2300 hours. This is the time that Mr. Sonnenberg said that he and Angie went to get sodas from this 7-Eleven. Detective Inyart and I observed Mr. Salazar Sonnenberg arrive in a gray truck with a trailer hitch on it. Mr. Sonnenberg went inside, obtained 3 drinks, 2 believed to be alcohol, as he had to show his ID to the cashier, and another believed to be 7-Up or Sprite. Mr. Sonnenberg and passenger left in the gray truck at approximately 22:38 hours and 38 seconds. I contacted loss prevention at 7-Eleven to obtain copies of the security video which she provided. The security DVDs were tagged into evidence. On November 13th, Detective Lukanoff and I met Miss Karen Buckles, Angie's mother, at the FAC so the detective could interview and update her on the investigation. Detective Lukanoff obtained a buccal swab from Karen Buckles at this time. The location and well-being of Miss Angie Romero is unknown. Miss Romero's cellular phone has not been located. Miss Romero's cellular phone is an unknown make and model. During the course of this investigation, I have kept Sergeant Ingram of the Missing Persons Unit, Sergeant Dennis Safoya of the Homicide Unit, and Homicide Detective Kelsey Lukanoff updated as case responsibility will be given to Detective Lukanoff. Taser videos were tagged into evidence. DVDs were tagged into evidence. The conversations that I had with Mr. Sonnenberg were recorded and transferred onto CD/DVD. This investigation is active and ongoing. That's a lot to process, but I think it's important to think about what we just heard. Daniel Sonnenberg gave a story to police. He claimed that Angie walked away from his house between the hours of 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. However, when security videos were reviewed by the neighbors, there was no evidence that Angie left his house at that time. He also had an altercation with his parents where, while he was intoxicated, he claimed to have killed Angie. There's a lot of things that just really don't make sense in this. And I'm really curious to know what police found in the search of Daniel's home. I'm going to continue reading from these supplements. On October 18, 2018, at approximately 21:06 hours, I was dispatched to 8810 Northeastern Boulevard in reference to a missing persons call. I spoke with the caller who advised me that she was trying to report her friend missing. She advised on October 13, 2018 that Angie was picked up from a friend's house by her boyfriend, Daniel Sonnenberg. She advised that the friend's house is located at and the friend the house belongs to is Miss Gutierrez. Rachel advised Angie's mother spoke to her on the phone on 10/14/2018. She advised since then that no one has seen or been in contact with Angie. She advised on October 15, 2018, an unidentified friend went to Daniel's house to check on Angie. She advised that Daniel was acting suspicious and was not wanting to answer questions about Angie. She also advised that Daniel told the friend Angie left his house at approximately 4 a.m. on October 15, 2018. She advised that Daniel refused to let the friend in the house to ensure that Angie was okay or not there. She advised that Angie is in contact with her friends and family on a daily basis, and it's very unusual for her to not be in contact with them. She said Angie's phone appears to be turned off at this time. She also said one of the main concerns pertaining to Angie is the fact that there is a history of physical violence against Angie by Daniel. As a matter of fact, let's look at some of the charges that Daniel has faced prior to Angie's disappearance. His record goes back a long way and appears to be full of violence. On October 27, 1998, Daniel Sonnenberg was charged with attempted false imprisonment, to which he pled guilty. On March 2, 2018, he was charged with a felony third-degree aggravated battery with great bodily harm. On July 2, 2019, he was charged with a felony fourth-degree aggravated assault with a deadly weapon against a household member. On November 25, 2019, he was charged with felony fourth-degree aggravated assault with a deadly weapon on a household member. Along with these, there were several other charges for domestic violence, conspiracy to commit a felony, aggravated battery against a household member, as well as tampering with evidence. There were also several DWI and driving with revoked license charges. Now, it's important to remember that everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. That is a right that is guaranteed to all U.S. citizens by the Constitution. But the fact that Daniel has a history of violence does raise red flags for us here at True Consequences, and I'm sure that it does the same for you. Now I want you to listen to Vanessa and Selina as they tell us what we can do to help in their search for Angie Romero. This is perfect. Let's talk about what my listeners can do. What does the family need from us?
Sharing the Facebook page, joining the group, going out to different social media platforms, handing out flyers, just awareness. And we just are never going to forget, ever.
promote it to the national networks, promote it to the news, get it out there. I want everybody to know. I would want him to, whenever he looks at anything, he sees it. I don't want him to ever forget. I want him to see her when he wakes up, when he goes to sleep.
We did blast his neighborhood with flyers a few times.
So Angie Buchholz Romero was 43 when she went missing, 5'4", 195 pounds, hazel eyes, hazel brown eyes, brown hair. Last seen October 14th, 2018. If you have any information, you can call Crime Stoppers at 505-843-STOP. You can remain anonymous.
Thanks for listening. Stay safe, New Mexico.